Welcome back, everybody, to Star Wars Escape Pod and our fourth episode of Lightspeed, which is our Star Wars news sub-series, bringing you news and headlines in under 15 minutes for those very quick commutes, for those runs around the track. I don't know. If you're cooking dinner, 15 minutes, it's not that bad. So it makes it convenient, you know, catching up on Star Wars news in under 15 minutes, just throw on a set of headphones, you're good to go. This episode is completely dedicated to the High Republic because that is the biggest news right now. And I really wanted to zone in on the High Republic for all of you guys who just didn't really know what it is, what's happening. You've heard about it maybe, but don't know completely what's going on with that whole thing. Well, don't worry. I'm going to break it down for you guys as best as I can and also give you the rundown on what's coming out for the High Republic era. So StarWars.com released a new timeline picture. So they have a new set of names for all the different eras that take place. Now, an era being, firstly, the prequel trilogy is one era, so to say. The original trilogy is another era, and the sequels are another. But they actually have official names that are referred to as if you were in the Star Wars galaxy. And the best way that I can put it is to just give you the names of these different eras. So as a simple Google search goes, you can actually look this up. Just type in Star Wars New Timeline. Boom. Hit enter. And it's an image that's got like a goldish tan colored background. And it's got 6 different eras on it. You'll notice that the very first one to the left says the High Republic. So that's your first clue as to what the High Republic actually is. And that leads into the Fall of the Jedi, which includes the prequel trilogy and Star Wars The Clone Wars. And then following that is the Reign of the Empire, which includes the Bad Batch, Solo: A Star Wars Story, Jedi Fallen Order, the video game, all that stuff. Age of Rebellion is the one that follows that, which includes Star Wars Rebels, Rogue One: A Star Wars Story, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. And then directly after that is the era of the New Republic, which right now only includes The Mandalorian, and we're eventually going to get more shows that take place in this era, which are Ahsoka, Rangers of the New Republic, The Book of Boba Fett, Mandalorian Season 3. All that stuff is going to be based in the New Republic era. And then finally, the last era on the timeline is called Rise of the First Order, and this includes the Resistance animated TV show as well as the sequel trilogy. So that's just an overall spectrum as to what they're doing with the timeline right now, and the company is really focusing in on these 2 eras, the High Republic and the New Republic. New Republic being Mandalorian, obviously. They're doing a lot of work to develop a lot of Disney Plus content in that era, but today's Lightspeed episode, we're completely focused in on the High Republic era, and I'm sure you guys all know about the Ahsoka and Rangers of the New Republic by now, so let's zone in on the High Republic for a sec. The High Republic era takes place 200 years before the fall of the Jedi, so that's where this takes place, which is about 800 years after the fall of the Sith, and in the 1,000 years of no Sith that exist kind of thing. Because in the Phantom Menace, Mace Windu says, or I think it's Ki-Adi-Mundi says, the Sith have been extinct for a millennia. So 1,000 years before the Phantom Menace, there haven't really been any Sith that have been publicly known to the Jedi. They're out there running around in twos, but they're not exactly plotting against the Jedi just yet, or at least they don't have a plot that's gonna get them anywhere until Palpatine comes along. So the High Republic era is going to feature a new set of villains called the Nihil, and it's being kicked off as of this week, January 5th. They launched the very first book, and that's what they're going to be doing, is building a whole set of books and novels, and that's graphic novels, junior novels, middle grade novels, adult novels, all this stuff, as well as web series, comic books, and short stories that take place in the Star Wars Insider magazines. So if you do subscribe to the Star Wars Insider magazines, you're going to get short stories popping up in there as well, written by a select group of authors that'll be writing High Republic-based era stories. So let's go down the list of all the different stuff that's going to be coming out. Starlight is Starlight Part 1 and Part 2 are written by Charles Soule, and they were published in the Star Wars Insider number 99 and issue number 200 for this is the Star Wars Insider magazine. And they are epilogues to the novel that he wrote called Light of the Jedi, which is the first novel on the adult novel list. Star Wars The High Republic, Light of the Jedi launched January 5th, 2021. And this novel features the great disaster and kicks off the events of Phase 1 of the High Republic era, which is going to consist of 3 phases, and I'll get into detail on that in just a little bit. So, Light of the Jedi is first novel on the list. Star Wars The High Republic The Rising Storm is launching July 6th, 2021 by Cavan Scott, also published by Del Rey, second adult novel in the list. We have two young adult novels coming as well. Star Wars The High Republic Into the Dark, launching February 2nd, written by Claudia Gray, and Star Wars The High Republic Out of the Shadows, launching July 27th, written by Justina Ireland. We have some middle grade novels. Star Wars The High Republic, A Test of Courage, written by Justina Ireland, and Star Wars The High Republic, Race to Crash Point Tower, launching June 29th, 2021, written by Daniel Jose Older. We also have a young reader novel coming, which is a adaptation of the Light of the Jedi book, and it's called The Great Jedi Rescue, and it's also written by Cavan Scott, and that is just an adaptation of the adult novel version called Light of the Jedi, written by Charles Soule. So we can expect that there's going to be a few more adaptations like that for younger readers that are basically just telling a very simplified version of the story for the younger kids that still want to read Star Wars stories, but at least they'll be taking place in this era and based on the general story that's going to be taking place at the same time. So if you have young kids, these are going to be perfect for them. We also have comics coming. We have a series launching from Marvel Comics, which is going to be called Star Wars The High Republic, ongoing series by Cavan Scott, art by Ario Anindito, and that premieres July 6th, 2021, which beginning with the first arc called There Is No Fear, taking place directly after the novel Light of the Jedi and featuring young Padawan Creve Trennis. There's another series coming by IDW Comics called Star Wars The High Republic Adventures, and is going to be an ongoing comic series by Daniel Jose Older, and the first issue is scheduled to be released February 21st, 2021. Star Wars The High Republic The Monster of Temple Peak is going to be a graphic novel written by Cavan Scott and art by Rachel Stott. The novel expands on a story written in the Rising Storm book, which is the second adult novel launching July 6th, 2021. And finally, we have Star Wars The High Republic The Edge of Balance, which is going to be an original manga written by Justina Ireland and Shima Shinya, with art by Mizuki Sakabara, published by Viz Media, and will focus on Jedi posted on smaller planets, emphasizing their role as protectors of the galaxy, basically. There's also going to be a web series launching called Star Wars The High Republic Show, which is basically just replacing the Star Wars show on the Star Wars YouTube channel. So if you haven't subscribed to the Star Wars YouTube channel, I would do that, and you're going to get a bi-monthly video showing up on that series featuring guests from the initiative discussing their work and what went into making them. So we can expect a lot of things happening with the authors and the people involved with creating the High Republic era. And the first episode is set to premiere January 27th this month. In related works, we have the Acolyte Disney Plus original series by Leslie Headland, who she serves as the showrunner, is going to be a mystery thriller featuring dark side powers in the final days of the High Republic era. So this show is going to be at the very tail end of the High Republic era before the Phantom Menace, and is going to be really cool. We don't know any details about it other than that, but that's coming to Disney Plus, and I can imagine that this is going to set the stage for characters kind of that might exist in this time, like Plagueis or a young Sidious or something like that. I think there's a lot of potential, and it's very likely that we could get movies based around this series as well, and in this era. So looking forward to more news on what's coming down the line for that. Finally, we have a Star Wars Chinese language ebook called Star Wars The Vow of Silver Dawn, which is exclusively going to be released in Chinese in Mandarin. So if you do read Mandarin, you're in luck. And this story is going to be taking place 50 years before The Phantom Menace, at the very end of the High Republic era. So around the same time that The Acolyte takes place, I would imagine. And there are no plans at the moment to bring an English translation or release, but I'm sure it'll happen eventually. But at the moment, this is pretty much geared for Chinese audiences and trying to get them more into Star Wars, because right now Star Wars really isn't a big thing in China. And so this is kind of aimed at those audiences exclusively. And that's pretty much everything from the High Republic era. I did announce earlier that the High Republic is coming in 3 phases. And this is something that Lucasfilm was talking about when they did a big press coverage in about a 52-minute video or something. They did a conversation with all the authors involved. And the High Republic era, just in a nutshell, is going to be 3 phases that last this year and cross into next year as well. So lots more content coming. I mean, most of the stuff that actually everything that I just told you about on the list of books and comics coming our way are all taking place in the first phase, which is subtitled Light of the Jedi, reflective of the first novel that kicks off the phase, written by Charles Soule. So we can expect that we're going to get 2 sequel novels to Light of the Jedi, which directly correlate with the names of the phases that they take place in. Phase 2 is going to be called Quest of the Jedi, and then the Phase 3 is going to be called Trials of the Jedi. So we can expect a lot of cool stuff coming, because all the things that have been announced so far are only in Phase 1. So assuming that they do about the same amount of content in Phase 2 and 3, I mean, we could be seeing High Republic era based books and comics coming out up until the year 2023, which is pretty crazy. So we can look forward to lots of stuff coming, as well as more Disney Plus series and even perhaps theatrical films in this era in the future. So hopefully that breaks it all down for you guys. Again, this is a story that takes place 200 years before The Phantom Menace. So this is an entirely new era and essentially a prequel era to the prequels. So very cool. And it's going to be something new. It's going to be very much what Ben Kenobi describes to Luke as the guardians of peace and justice in the Old Republic. And when he says that, he doesn't necessarily mean the era of the Old Republic that's from Star Wars Legends 1,000 years ago kind of thing, but he's actually talking about the Republic and what it used to be before the fall of the Jedi. So that'll be really cool to finally get some content that takes place in this era that in canon so far we don't really have a good picture on what it looks like. On top of all that stuff, I mean, thanks guys for tuning into the show. It's a lot of things to digest there. I think we filled up our 15 minutes for today, but thanks for tuning into the show. And if you haven't already, it would do us a huge favor if you sent this podcast to a friend. If they're a Star Wars fan, they might love it. And if you haven't checked out our episodes celebrating 100 episodes of Star Wars Escape Pod, be sure to do that as well, because we had a great time on that episode. I think it was one of the best, most fun ones that we did. We had some good laughs, played some good trivia. See if you can answer the questions correctly for yourself when you listen to it. And if you want to get in touch with the show, feel free to send us an email at theescapepod@outlook.com. You can follow our Twitter at SWEscapePodcast. And you can join the Discord as well, which is open to the public now, which is pretty cool. All these links are in the description. And also feel free to leave a voicemail at our SpeakPipe address, which is also down there, just the same. So thanks again, guys, for tuning into Star Wars Escape Pod and our 4th episode of Lightspeed, bringing you Star Wars news and headlines from across the galaxy to the podcasting platform of your choice. We'll see you next time, and may the Force be with you.